Thomas, welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, on my way home, I came across a video. It does me no good feeling at all to have to do this. But look, I found another hypocrite. And I found it basking back on the shores of MSNBC. And once again, it is Rachel Maddow. Look, I like Rachel Maddow for the most part. I think she's bright, creative, very smart. But that doesn't necessarily make her right. And to be honest, you can be factual in a story. Like, meaning you can relay a story to your audience. The story can be factual, but you can be completely dishonest in the impression that you're trying to give to those people who's looking at that show and who's consuming the information that you're putting out. I'm going to show the video in a moment, but this boiled down to an issue in North Dakota where they're running into a budget shortfall, but they have a special election that they need to put on. So it's a Republican state, and as they put out the story that they had the budget shortfall, one of the ideas was to have mail-in ballots. Now, it saves money for the most part because Montana is such a small state. It's probably a decent idea. The Republicans didn't want to do it because they realized, and Democrats realized this too, but they understood that the more people that vote, the worse it is for them. That's why you have all this voter ID laws and all this voter suppression tactics. What's the guy named? Weigel. He was like a Republican operative of sorts. But he had this awesome speech where he's saying, essentially, he doesn't want everybody to vote. Their chances of success in elections goes up the less people that vote. Let's hear a story.
The counties have to cough up that money. They don't have that money. Well, the county clerks have an idea. They've been lobbying for it statewide. They've been writing op-eds. They've been testifying at the legislature. Their idea is this. In Montana already, when there are local elections, when there are school board elections, oftentimes those elections are run without the expense of opening up the polling places, right? They're run instead by mail. Montana is a huge state with not that many people in it. Running an election by mail just makes economic sense in a state where the people are that spread out. And Montana elections administrators, they have a lot of experience of running elections by mail because of it. Why not do the congressional election that way as well? Just mail everybody a ballot. Here's the Teton County clerk and recorder making the case in her local paper. Quote, as Representative Zinke's pending appointment looms over Montana, elections administrators across the state see mounting costs for an unbudgeted election. Election administrators have a solution to save the taxpayers' money. Quote, we are proposing a bill to conduct the congressional special election by mail. Conducting the election by mail would conservatively save taxpayers statewide between $500,000 and $750,000. Now, here's another county clerk making the case in her local paper. Quote, mail ballot elections are safe, secure, and cost-effective. In an effort to minimize costs for the upcoming special election for Ryan Zinke's congressional seat, election administrators across the state see holding a mail ballot election as a solution. This is a technocratic thing, right? This is a practical, non-controversial thing. It's a solution that is only designed to save money. It's being put forward as a good government option by the people who actually have to run that part of the government, trying to save taxpayers' money. Until today, because of that, this proposal had bipartisan support. And then that bipartisan support collapsed today. Because today, the chair of the Republican Party in Montana sent out this. The Emergency Chairman's Report on the Negative Impact on Republican Candidates Due to Mail Ballot Elections. Even though this was a Republican bill that was sponsored by a Republican in the House and a Republican in the Senate, the Republican Party chairman has now come out in an emergency action, come out against it, and told Montana Republicans they have to stand against this. Because if Montana votes by mail, too many people might vote. Quote, all mail ballots give the Democrats an inherent advantage. Vote by mail is designed to increase participation rates of lower propensity voters. Democrats in Montana perform better than Republican candidates among lower propensity voters. I know my position will not be popular with many fiscally conservative Republicans or the sponsors of this bill. They may be well-intended, but this bill could be the death of our effort to make Montana a reliably Republican state. If it's too easy to vote, the Democrats might win. There are not that many of these special elections, these one-off elections this year. But each one of them is going to be interesting, both in terms of their consequences as, consequences qua consequences. But they're also going to be interesting, each of them, as a potential sort of check of the country's temperature. Right? We're going through these very strong changes in Washington and in response to what's going on in Washington. There's a very strong movement in this country that is responding negatively to this new president. And Montana is one of those states in the country right now where if we take the temperature, we might find that it is at a fever pitch. Or at least it looks like the temperature may have changed a lot in response to what happened in the presidential election. After Donald Trump won the presidency in Montana by 20 points, Republicans in that state shouldn't have to worry about the exact logistics of how the next congressional election would be administered in their state, right? They shouldn't be lobbying to purposely waste hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxpayer money to try to tilt the playing field against Democrats and make it harder to vote. Even the initial Republican sponsor of the vote by mail bill, she's a Republican. She says she doesn't get it. Quote, personally, I would rather get beat in an election with good turnout than win in an election with low turnout.
Where is your integrity? Right? We have to ask the question. It's not rhetorical. Where on earth is your integrity? So, what is your job for that matter? Is your job to be a propaganda mouthpiece for the Democratic Party? Or is your job to be the integrity? To give an honest, objective viewing of reality? Yes, Republicans are doing that. Republicans have been doing that for 20-something years. But your party did the exact same thing in the primaries. Why are we continuously having these arguments when you guys are just being hypocrites? Why? It thrills me to know, it doesn't thrill me to bring this up. But it's almost like being in an abusive relationship or something. And then one of the parties will say something that completely triggers the memory of what took place before. Your candidate cheated. They threw 100,000 people off the rolls in Brooklyn. They were shutting down polling locations to extend the lines in many other locations. Many of those places that allowed independents and had easy voting. Hillary Clinton lost. Your party, the Democratic Party, knew full well that the more people who were coming to that particular election to vote, the more likely of a chance that Sanders was going to win that particular country, that particular state. You all took active steps to prevent that. Everything from shuffling money to certain places. Everything from Tom Perez advising to turn minorities away from Sanders using racial attacks. Y'all were doing the same thing. How is that not voter suppression? I don't remember you giving a story like this. I don't. I've seen, I think if I'm not mistaken, at least 2 interviews with Hillary Clinton. And I definitely didn't see anything on your show talking about how Democrats shouldn't rig the primary against Sanders, how Democrats shouldn't try to curb the number of people who are going to vote in those elections just so their candidate can win. So again, where is your integrity? If it is bad for Republicans to do this, which I agree, it is horrible. But I'm consistent. I don't like it when they do it. I don't like it when you and the people who you support do it either. I'm asking, why aren't you consistent? Whether we're talking about red baiting in Russia, whether we're talking about the voting thing in the primaries where you just gave a complete free pass to, whether we're talking about the investigations into Trump and you crawling through one story after another in tedious detail, but information that comes up against Hillary, whether it's the Podesta emails, whether it's the DNC hacks, whether it's the obvious things that they were doing in the primaries to steal that primary from Sanders and curtail the number of people who are going to vote. Where's your integrity? That's not a rhetorical question. Where on earth is your integrity? I don't get it. I don't get it. How do you give an honest appraisal? And you say, Republicans are doing this. Republicans, this is goddamn awful. Republicans are doing this. You're on a news show. You scan all sorts of news. But for whatever reason, we're to believe that the things that the Democratic Party does, that it's almost identical to the things that the Republican Party is doing, minus identity stuff. I don't understand why those don't come up. Why those get a pass. Is this purely an issue of you not wanting to do things and say things that adversely affect the party that you yourself chose? And if so, that is the absolute opposite of integrity. That's you just being a mouthpiece and a shill for the Democratic Party. Your job in your news show is to literally give people information, to give people news, to help people with things on their day so they can make certain decisions and choices. You're cutting stories in a way that limits their viewpoint. Yes, the story may be correct. Yes, the story may be factually accurate. But you're not giving them sufficient context. You're giving them false context. You're making it seem like Republicans are your problem. Everything Republicans do is horrible. Democrats are there to protect you, and Democrats are there to help you. And Democrats just want everybody to vote. Republicans don't want everybody to vote. Now, that's true. Republicans don't want everybody to vote. But when you were in the exact same situation, you did the exact same thing in order to get your seat or to get your candidate elected. Where on earth is your integrity? Where? I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. We should have an affirmative right to vote. Voting should be easy. I agree with you. They should do those mail-in ballots. They should come up with a process where people can be off the entire day when they're doing a vote. I agree. Voting should be a hell of a lot easier. But those weren't positions you were taking when the Democratic primary was going on and when the candidate who you wanted to get elected, Hillary Clinton, was going to be harmed by that open voting. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. It just seems like one story after another. And like I said, I like Rachel Maddow. It doesn't thrill me to do this at all. I just feel like, I almost feel like I'm blackmailed by my integrity to call him on this shit. Yeah, she may be a lefty, and that's fine. But certainly, story after story after story, the things that she's saying is completely without context. And it's completely cut in a way to make it look like it's all of one side, and it's none of the other. It is more than just one side. That's the problem. That's the thing that you're fundamentally missing. It's more than just one side. Look, I've said this before. 95% of the wealth went to the top 1% under a Democratic president. That was under a Democrat. If Rachel's a lib, why is she not bothered by that? It look like that should, disturb her to no end. What about the drone wars? What about the locking up whistleblowers? I mean, it just seems like all of these things gets a pass. And the only thing she wants to discuss are how bad Republicans are. By proxy, by virtue of the things that you decide to discuss, the lens that you put on the world and the people who is looking at your show, they're going to have a skewed view of the world in the same way that Fox News viewers are going to have a skewed view of the world. No, you're not as bad as Fox News. At the very least, you try to get facts. But again, the facts, absent of context, gives across a dishonest position. Be the integrity. That has nothing to do with your party. That has to do with your values. Be the integrity. That's all I'm saying. Thanks, guys.